Good morning, friends. Hello. Sorry for being late this morning. We had sometimes the technical difficulties just get the better of you. So we were struggling to get the crank up the live stream. Never know when it's going to betray you, but it did. So here we are on a few minutes late. Hope you are well. Good morning. Give it a sec. See if a few folks come along here. Good morning, everybody. We are here getting ready for our rally day on Sunday, the start of Sunday school. So, hoping we'll have. So, if you're at all interested, give us a call or come to worship on Sunday and be a part of our worship program here and um, helping our kids learn about God and the way of the church. So, good morning, everybody. Hey, Jane, good morning to you. Glad you're here. Karen, good morning. Hope you're great. Hey, Donna, hope you and Phyllis are doing better. Hope you're feeling better. Good morning, everybody. So, again, sorry for the delay. The live stream just wouldn't crank up this morning. Had to reboot everything, and sometimes that happens. Hey, John, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Great to see everybody this morning. Feeling okay. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right. Good morning, everybody. All right, let's get going this morning. It is the 19th day of September on this Thursday, and welcome to 11:11. And I hope you're doing well and that there's goodness in your day. There's this there's this little line that from First Corinthians. We're going to spend a little more time in First Corinthians on Sunday, but I've been spending some time in it today, and there's this line that just it seems to echo everything I think these days about how I think God is working, and just God is working in in the church and in our lives and around because we're in this election year, and we're in this world of great violence in so many different ways, because the and whether it's actually one person clubbing another person over the head, but even the rhetoric is violence, even the things around us are violent, even the things that there's just this harshness of reality that seems to be pouring out all over the place. And there's this one little line from the beginning of Paul's letter to the church in Corinth, and it's verse 27. So he says this: God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong. I that it that that really pierced my heart a bit today, and it kind of brought some strength to it, because I just spent this morning across the street at the school that's next door to here at the church, the Resiliency Preparatory Academy here in Fall River, and we're sponsoring their teachers closet there. So as you know, teachers are always kind of needing things for the classroom, or whether it's supplies or materials or stuff like that. So and the United Way has been just brilliant at coordinating different things to be able to different closets around the city, and around the region. 11 different schools that have different partners with them to help their little closet for their teachers to have what they need, whether they need a box of tissues or they need a thing. And not to say that schools don't do the job supplying these, but there's always materials that in the course of learning teachers need. So we've taken that on for our neighbors next door. And so we were over there kind of getting that set up, and kind of talking with them a little bit this morning and it struck me as I started to spend a little time with Paul's words to the church in Corinth about how kind of ridiculous these things are, or how kind of small these things are. And yet these are the things, these small actions of our church making sure that, somebody next door has a marker when they need to teach somebody something on a whiteboard, or making sure they have a stressed out kid has a manipulative that they can do something with, or whatever it is, that these tiny and small acts that that become to just embarrass these crazy and weird things of the world. The great Jim Henson, the puppeteer, his I mean, here's a guy who built a media empire with Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, who touched hundreds, millions of lives, who, everybody can still sing a bar of Rainbow Connection at some level or another, and all the different ways that his genius kind of shifted and changed the world. And his daughter remembers him talking about, but making a very different saying though. He said he said his dad would look at a guy who was maybe cleaning the streets, and he would say this. He would say he admired. He says, my dad, Jim Henson, the greatest puppeteer, the greatest entertainer of children and entertainer of adults that maybe the last generation saw. He admired the job of the man who walked along the road picking up trash with a long stick. He thought, that guy has a great job. Walking along with a stick, enjoying the road, doing only good in the world with hundreds of small actions. We would look at the guy who walks along the street, and the world would look at the guy who walks along with the stick and say, "Wow, how weak, how how small." And yet, though that reality of his experience of what's actually playing itself out there, as this way of shaming people who, well, they think they know better, all the think tanks in Washington that know all the different ways for the things to happen, and why we need to pursue the war in this place and that place, and these things that need to happen, and all the economic factors that are coming into the next, all of the craziness that is a part of our days. And yet it is these simple, small things, weak things, these foolish things that actually become to bring shame on the people who would seek to blow them up, who bring shame on think they know better because they're so much smarter than the rest. And that so much of that, I think, is built out of this notion of why, the smarty pants of the world, that cling to being the smarty pants of the world, and why the strong, seek that power and hold on to that power, is because often they are surrounded in some way by great fears. All the things that we, should be afraid of, right? I mean, if we think about what has God has chosen the foolish things, what is the most foolish of things? Well, it is faith. What is the weakest of things? Well, it is innocence. But God has given us faith, and God has given us innocence. And I'm not saying but this, when I say the innocence, I mean kind of just this simple idea of just doing the right thing for the right thing's sake, of being good and true and beautiful for the good and true and beautiful sake. That this notion of the invitation into purity for purity's sake, because it is a thing to be pursued in its own right. That this faith and innocence are the foolish and the weak things. And anybody can destroy. Like, you can go on any channel and on television, and you can see. So you can go on any YouTube channel, you can go on any Spotify channel, and you can go on any comedian, and you can see somebody, adulterating what is beautiful in some way, form, or another. Somebody that's making something innocent into something debased. We can look at anything that is. Every great joke is somehow tinged in cynicism rather than faithfulness and grace. the great warrior Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy was the most decorated warrior in uh, World War II. He hated that title actually, and he'd say that often. And in it, but in it, he won more citations, performed more acts of heroism. He 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 said this. He said, "It seems to me that if you're afraid or you're living with some big fear, well, you're not really living. You're only half alive. I don't care if it's the boss that you're scared of, or a lot of people in a room of, or a diving board into a pool. You got to get rid of it. You owe it to yourself. It makes sort of a zombie out of you being afraid. And I mean you, you want to be free, don't you? And how can you, if you're scared? That's prison. Fear's a jailer. Mind now, I'm not a professor on the subject. I just found it out for myself. But that's what I think. Now, when he says this, it, there's also kind of the tactical wisdom that he says behind it, which is the quote I want to get to next, which is that that when we look at these great gifts that God has given us, when God has chosen the foolish things of the world, faith, God has chosen the weak things of the world, innocence, to shame the things of the wise and shame the things. Audie Murphy goes on to say this. He says, don't worry about the big things. He says, worry about the small things, because the big things will take care of themselves. He says, don't worry if the trucks show up. Worry about that if the trucks show up, they have enough fuel to get you to where that you need to go. It's, that was actually his kind of, that was actually his on the battlefield idea and his on the battlefield notion, which I think leads us right back to like, well, of course you worry about whether the trucks show up. Of course you worry about whether the big things happen. Of course you worry about who gets elected in the election. Of course you worry about what the economic numbers are for the next quarter. Of course you worry about the big things of time, rather than worry about the things that are small and that are within our capability and control, because those are the things, and that, well, again, they can be pointed to as foolish, and they can be pointed to as weak, and they can be pointed to as broken, or they can be pointed to as meaningless. But there was a closet across the street that didn't have stuff in it, that has stuff in it now, that when teachers enter, it is right off of where they enter the door every day of school, and that as they enter it, if they need something for the classroom, they can go get it. If they need an encouragement for a child, they can find one. If they need something, it is in that they don't have to, that whether or not whatever the big things that are challenged in their days, there's a small thing that can be provided in the helping of that, of the challenges of their day. And I think kind of that's what I hope more and more of what we kind of come to understand what the church is. It's not, on the barricades of great social movements, although the church has done that before, but I think more and more that it is about these tiny and small graces, these foolish things of the world, these weak things of the world that end up shaming the strong, that end up shaming the smarty pants, that end up because of both of the faith in which we can live them out and the innocence in which we've given them. The the father of modern psychology, a guy by the name of William James. His father was Henry, was the author Henry James. Um, he came up with, an incredibly intellectual household, de, uh, rich with spirit and rich with things of depth and wholeness, and out of that he would really come there's a to be the really the father of what we would know as modern psychology. And it's really not Sigmund Freud or it's not Carl Jung. Those are rock stars that end up. But if you wrote the real formation of what it is for people to look at and care for the psyche I would look, particularly in America, to William James. And James goes on in all of his work, and there, you can go up to Harvard, and there's buildings named after him. There's whole wings of thought named after him. He is a rock star and famous now in his own right for all that his wisdom and his thinking brought to the world. But he said this about what it was for him to care for the human soul and for him to care for the human psyche. He wrote this later in life: I am done with great things and big things, great institutions and big successes. And I am for those tiny, invisible, molecular moral forces that work from individual to individual, creeping through the crannies of the world like so many rootlets, or like the capillaries oozing of water, yet which, if you give them time, will rend the hardest monuments of man's pride. Friends, God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong. This Sunday we start with Rally Day. It's our welcome back Sunday from people being away over the summertime, and it is our welcome back to Sunday school and choir and all the great activities of the church. We have an incredibly aggressive and all kinds of events scheduled for the fall, not the least of which we have a Bible study starting on Monday, an overview of the Bible, 3 nights overview of the Bible. It's going to be fantastic. All of it are simply these tiny movements, these rootlets, these capillaries that will move the great stones and monuments of the world, because God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong. Peace and grace to you, my friends, and join us on at 282 Rock Street on Sunday, a part of our Rally Day, or wherever you are. And peace and grace to you. And we'll pick it up next week with another 11:11.